Ready to roll. When possible, make a U-turn. Rerouting. Make a U-turn. Go straight on.
Good evening, everyone. This is John Taft with the tank truck that I drove last Monday. We're going to start with my stock back, which is the Texas Arkansas border, and then it's going to be for soda cash in Fort Lewis, Arkansas. So, let's all ride in the.
Keep right, and then turn right.
The guy was fencing back, by the way,
Turn
so,
right.
So let's the first location, first item, and you move on.
Get ready to turn left. Turn left. It's all over now. Time to hit the road.
Especially with Trump's rhetoric, but she overall agrees with his policies.
Oh, just calling names. You know, he could have gone through the debate without calling names, or go to these speeches that he does to without calling names. I think people are used to it now, but it would just sound better and more presidential if he didn't.
So the voters that I've talked to told me that the town is pretty close-knit, and one person actually told me that she's a Democrat, but she won't go on record supporting Vice President Harris, and she works in a cafe nearby and thinks that that could impact business.
Sarah, before I let you go, just situate Rutledge, how it compares, how the people you're meeting there compare in their views to other parts of rural Georgia.
Turn left.
Right. So rural counties outside of the major cities in Atlanta tend to vote Republican pretty consistently. But some counties, like Liberty County, which is in southeast Georgia, sort of near Savannah, has pretty large pockets of black voters, and they tend to lean Democratic. Liberty County ended up voting for Biden in 2020. Overall, rural voters in Georgia voted mostly for Trump in 2020, but both the Harris and the Trump campaigns have opened field offices in these rural areas to try to connect with voters there.
That is Georgia Public Broadcasting Sarah Collis out talking with voters in Rutledge, Georgia, as our series We the Voters rolls on.
Right.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
The civil war in Sudan has caused a massive humanitarian crisis. Some 13 million people have been displaced, according to the World Health Organization. More than 600,000 have fled west to Chad, and more arrive every day. In some places, refugees nearly outnumber locals. That strains local resources and humanitarian aid organizations. NPR's Fatma Tanis is in one of those rural towns in eastern Chad. Hi, Fatma.
Hi, Ari.
Tell us about where you are and what you've seen.
So I'm in a town called Gareda. It's about 20 miles from the border with Sudan. And Ari, this is a very remote part of Chad. The only way in is by road, which is unpaved and flooded and muddy. Now, this town is surrounded by massive refugee camps where about 90,000 Sudanese people are staying. The majority of the adults are women, and more than half of the entire camp population are children. I spent some time with them yesterday and today, and they all have harrowing stories of the war in Sudan. Many of their family members have been killed. But right now, they are in dire need of food and water and health care. The children I saw today, Ari, they were very thin, and many told me that they're eating only one meal a day, and it's always a porridge that's made of water and flour.
I understand why food can't reach Sudan given the war, but you're in Chad. Why can't food reach those people through humanitarian aid organizations?
So there are two main issues here: funding and access. I was with the World Vision Country Director Edouard Ngoy today, and he told me that they've only received about 20% of the funding that they need for their response to this crisis. Many other groups have the same problem. Then there's the issue of access. Our car got stuck in the mud on our way to the camps yesterday. It took about an hour to get out, and it would have been nearly impossible for a heavier truck carrying aid to make it through that. And so because of this, aid organizations like the World Food Program and World Vision and others, they started giving refugees small amounts of cash so that they can buy their own food from locals and not have to wait for aid. But not everyone has received that help, and food prices have gone up quite a bit because of the overpopulation. And so food aid is still an emergency need.
And what does all of this mean for local people who have lived in Chad since before the war started?
They're being affected immensely. Today I sat in on a meeting between community leaders and the refugee camp. They meet to solve problems together and avoid conflict. Now, Chad, as we know, is one of the poorest countries in the world. People here are farmers, and they talked about huge chunks of farmland has been taken up by refugees. And so resources like food, firewood, and water are running out. They have some solutions too. They want aid organizations to help them set up water systems and give trainings so that people can make a living in ways other than farming. But they say that they've gotten no help from anyone so far.
And what have you heard from the Sudanese refugees who've spoken with?
Their main concern is, of course, hunger. One of the few women in the room spoke up bluntly and said that malnutrition among women and children was out of control. Others said that they felt forgotten by the world. One of the refugee elders, Yahya Adam Nadif, asked me, "Do Americans know what is happening to us?" Here's what he said.
And then
He said, "Our people are dying in Sudan because of the war, and they're dying here because of hunger."
That's NPR's Fatma Tanis reporting from eastern Chad. Thank you.
Thank you, Ari.
Wildfires are getting more extreme with climate change, but even in the worst ones, some houses survive. Lauren Sommer from NPR's Climate Desk reports on what homeowners can do to prepare for wildfire threat and increase the chances they'll have a home to come back to.
It's a pretty surprising sight after a wildfire. There are rows of destroyed houses, debris and ash everywhere. And then one house that looks completely untouched.
It is certainly a hopeful story, yeah. We are not powerless against these wildfires.
Faraz Hedayati is a research engineer at the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. It's a nonprofit research group funded by the insurance industry that studies why houses burn down. After last year's devastating wildfire in Lahaina, Maui, they inspected the damage. More than 2,000 buildings were destroyed. The fire was driven by extreme winds that tore through the dense grasses at the edge of town.
In many parts of Lahaina, tall, unmaintained grasses were in contact with the built environment.
But one house near the grassland didn't burn. That's because its backyard had been cleared of dense vegetation, creating what's known as defensible space. It acts like a buffer.
We want to sparse out the fuel. By fuel, I mean trees, sheds, vegetation, anything in that area should not be in contact with each other.
A few other houses survived because they had rock or brick fences. That's a lot safer than wood fencing, Hedayati says, which can carry fire right to a house, especially if there's a gate or deck touching the house. Another important thing, the roof. That's because a wildfire puts out a lot of embers.
They go up in the air, and wind can carry them a few feet or several miles. And when they land on a home, they can ignite.
Embers can ignite a wood roof, but one house in Lahaina with a metal roof survived. Tiles and asphalt shingles also resist fire. Finally, Hedayati says, using fire-resistant building materials made a difference for some houses too. That includes the siding and having double-pane windows.
We need to give a fighting chance to the building to survive by using non-combustible material. But that's all we can do.
Surviving a wildfire does take some luck, he says. Even a house with everything done right can still burn in extreme conditions.
There is no guarantee in natural hazards, but the chance to have a home to return to is significantly higher when we apply these recommendations.
And when a whole neighborhood prepares for wildfire, that makes the biggest difference, he says, since it can stop the fire from getting in the first place. Lauren Summer, NPR News.
It's coming up on 6:18 on All Things Considered on your NPR station, News 88.7.
The Buffalo Bills are building a new stadium, and if you're a fan, you can buy a bond to support that public financing. Some think that's a great idea. Others, not so much.
Every dollar that a Buffalo resident spends on the Bills is a dollar not available to spend on other things in the economy.
I'm Kai Risdal, Public Sports Financing. Next time on Marketplace.
And we'll have that for you at 6:30, followed by the Daily at 7 o'clock.
PBS NewsHour.
Now more than ever, you need news you can trust. For nearly 50 years, millions have turned to PBS NewsHour for the solid, reliable reporting that has made NewsHour the most objective and credible news program on television. Unbiased, in-depth news that delivers substance over sensationalism. Elections, conflict, climate. Trust a news source that cuts through the noise with news that matters. Fair, thoughtful coverage of the events that impact our lives.
PBS NewsHour, weeknights at 6 on Houston Public Media TV8.
It's one thing to love public radio, but it's a special thing to support it. Consider this. If you've got a car you don't need anymore, or you've got one that's simply too expensive to repair, you can arrange to donate it to Houston Public Media. We take any kind of vehicle in any condition. It's easy for you, pickup is free, and it could be worth hundreds of dollars in support. Visit HoustonPublicMedia.org/cars to learn more. And thanks.
Support comes from Baylor College of Medicine, creating tomorrow's medicine today. Known for their medical research and innovation, Baylor College of Medicine is a proud sponsor of Houston Matters with Craig Cohen, Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. on News 88.7. Support comes from Texarkana, presenting the Takash String Quartet with pianist Jeremy Dank, playing music of Haydn, Janacek, and Dvorak. September 26th at Hobby Center. For tickets, Texarkana.com.
92 Fahrenheit, 33 Celsius right now here at the UH campus, and it's All Things Considered on News 88.7 at 6:20.
Keep right and then turn right.
Support for NPR comes from the station and from Insperity, providing HR services and technology, from payroll, benefits, and HR compliance to talent development. Learn more at Insperity.com/HR Matters. From BritBox, working to help people discover British dramas and mysteries, including The Responder starring Martin Freeman, and entire series like Sherlock and Vera, streaming at BritBox.com/NPR. And from listeners like you who donate to this NPR station.
This is All Things Considered from NPR News. I'm Ari Shapiro.
And I'm Juana Summers. There haven't been any federal executions since President Biden imposed a moratorium back in 2021, but states are still carrying out the death penalty. 13 people have been executed this year, and over the next week, there are 5 prisoners scheduled to die, despite the fact that problems persist with how to end their lives. NPR's Kiara Eisner of our investigations team is with us now. Hi there.
Hey, Juana.
So, Kiara, I understand that there are 5 states planning to execute prisoners next week, the first being tomorrow night in South Carolina. This is the first for the state of South Carolina in 13 years, is that right?
Yes, and part of the reason it took that long is that the state has said it struggled to obtain those lethal injection drugs. They also had to wait for a recent ruling from the South Carolina Supreme Court that all 3 of its methods were constitutional. Now that they have that ruling, Khalil Allah, known before as Freddie Owens, he's scheduled to die tomorrow. Prisoners in South Carolina have to choose which of the state's 3 execution methods they prefer. That's the electric chair, lethal injection, or the firing squad. But Allah asked his lawyer to choose for him. He's Muslim, and he felt like choosing how to die would have been like suicide, which is against his faith. So his lawyer picked lethal injection.
How did South Carolina solve the problem of getting these lethal injection drugs?
Well, we know the state apparently has the pentobarbital sedative that it needs, but lawyers for Allah say the Department of Corrections hasn't been transparent about much else. They say they've asked for basic facts like the drug's expiration date and the results of state testing, but they haven't gotten any answers. I talked to Lindsay Vann. She's the executive director of the nonprofit representing him, Justice 360.
The Department of Corrections has told us that they had to try 1,300 different potential suppliers before they were able to get the drugs, and now they won't tell us much of anything about the drugs.
Van says they've filed a federal lawsuit. One other thing about this execution, Juana, we've done a lot of reporting on the mental and physical toll on execution workers in South Carolina and 16 other states. Workers told me a first execution like this after a long break can be especially traumatic, and in this case, it's been 13 years.
Lethal injections were causing problems in Alabama, too, where the state is scheduled to execute a prisoner next Thursday. Are they going to use it again there?
They're not. The state tried to execute Alan Eugene Miller by lethal injection once already. In 2022, workers poked him with needles for more than an hour before the execution was called off. Now, Alabama is going to try again, but this time they're trying with nitrogen gas. If that sounds like deja vu, it's because that was the same unusual situation with Kenneth Smith, who survived Alabama's first lethal injection attempt and later became the first person executed with nitrogen gas in the country. Not everyone agrees that gas was better, though. When Smith was executed with nitrogen, the state said everything went according to plan. But witnesses in the death chamber said he convulsed as the gas was administered, and one said it looked like torture.
Kiara, 5 executions in 7 days. It does sound like a lot, but is it?
That's a record for the year. The other executions are in Missouri, Oklahoma, and Texas. And I should add that 3 of the men scheduled to die are black. That's important because a report this year found that black prisoners were more likely to experience botched lethal injection executions. But despite all these scheduled executions, it looks like Americans may be changing their minds about the death penalty. For the first time last year, a recent poll showed a growing number think the death penalty is applied unfairly in the U.S.
That's Kiara Eisner with NPR's investigations team. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are nearly 4 million Muslims in the United States, including about 240,000 in Michigan. In the 2020 presidential election, American Muslims were a big part of why Joe Biden won Michigan by just 155,000 votes. This year, some say they feel politically homeless, not understood or welcomed by either Republicans or Democrats. Nargis Rahman of member station WDET reports.
At a Yemeni coffee house in Dearborn called Haraz, Hamza Ashfaq and his wife are chatting over lattes. Ashfaq is a recent medical school graduate. He says this presidential campaign has been challenging because neither candidate fully reflects his values or political priorities.
Everybody's going to play the lesser of the two evils vote. In the end, it's, not going to be good for us either way.
Ashfaq says he is voting for Kamala Harris despite his concerns about the Biden-Harris administration's positions on Israel's war in Gaza. Michigan was at the epicenter of the uncommitted national movement that protested President Biden during the Democratic primaries. And this idea that neither party reflects their moral. Muhaysin, who is 24, says he has never voted in a U.S. election before, but he feels obligated to vote this year.
The people in Gaza, they share my faith, they share my name.
Muhaysin says he plans to vote for the Green Party's candidate, Jill Stein.
American Muslims care about the economy. American Muslims care about climate change, and they care about healthcare access and immigration policy. But certainly one of, if not the top, if not for some American Muslims, the only issue that they care about is the crisis in Gaza.
Yusuf Shahood is an associate professor of political science at Christopher Newport University, who studies voting trends of American Muslims.
The sense of homelessness, I think, that American Muslims feel politically is something that weighs heavy on them, and something that is going to probably continue from now until they go into
third-party candidate. Farah Khan is the co-chair of Michigan's Abandon Harris campaign.
Do not vote for these two despicable candidates who are running for presidency. I don't know what kind of world we live in now, because these are the people we have to look up to for our leaders. It's really sad.
According to a national survey conducted for the Council on American Islamic Relations, about 30% of American Muslims nationwide support Kamala Harris. Another 30% back Stein. 11% said they plan to vote for Donald Trump, and nearly 17% said they are still undecided. Imam Mikhail Stewart Siddiq is former chair of the Imams Council of Michigan, and he taught at the Al-Ikhlas Training Academy for 20 years. The registered Democrat says he's willing to give Harris a shot.
She is not Trump, nor is she Biden. So, in my opinion, I would like to see what she can do.
He says this is a moment to move forward and build on the political work of previous generations.
And having to fight your way through politics and fight your way through political revolution, of all those games, I'm not willing to spit in the face of my ancestors.
Detroit voter Munira Salim says she's still undecided on who to vote for in the weeks before the election.
When it comes to the pro-peace vote, when it comes to the Muslim vote, and even when it comes to the black vote, there's no one representation.
Like Salim, many Muslims are waiting to see if there are any changes in the Biden-Harris administration's Gaza policy before they cast their votes in November. For NPR News, I'm Nargis Rahman in Detroit.
And in Houston, it's coming up on 6:29, and you've been listening to All Things Considered on your NPR station, News 88.7. Marketplace is 1 minute away.
Keep right, and then exit right.
An actors' union struck over it. A gun reform group uses it. New technology allows voices from the past to be used in the present, but is it right? I'm Craig Cohen. Ethics in the Age of AI on the next Houston Matters.
Tomorrow morning at 9 on News 88.7.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Porter Law Firm, helping with business investments, real estate transactions, construction matters, and planning for the next generation. More at porterfirm.com. Real investment.
Support comes from St. Paul's United Methodist Church's Ordinary Life Sunday School class, welcoming theologian Reverend Dr. Jackie Lewis on toxic politics and fierce love, Sunday the 22nd. Registration and details at ordinarylife.org.
Support comes from Visit Galveston, presenting the Galveston Sandcastle Festival with live music, food, drinks, and amateur sandcastle building as part of AIA's Sandcastle Competition. September 20th. More at visitgalveston.com.
Get ready to turn right.
Marketplace is supported by WordPress VIP. Media, enterprise, and government websites worldwide trust WordPress VIP to run, grow, and secure their websites. Learn more at wordpressvip.com.
On the program today, what is going to happen now that money is cheaper? We'll do the finances of football, and we'll take a quick trip to Alaska. From American Public Media, this is Marketplace.
Marketplace is supported by Progressive Insurance, helping protect small businesses with a variety of coverages like general liability, workers' compensation, and commercial auto. More at progressivecommercial.com. And by Amazon Business, focused on offering smart business buying solutions, leading time to focus on growth. More at amazonbusiness.com. And by Barron's Streetwise podcast, hosted by Barron's Associate Editor Jack Howe, offering insights each week on business leaders and trend spotters, available everywhere.
In Los Angeles, I'm Kyle Rizdal. It is Thursday, today the 19th of September, or as we like to call it around here, Fed Plus One. Good to have you along, everybody. It is going to take a little bit for the Federal Reserve's 0.5 percentage point rate cut yesterday to trickle down through the economy, but lenders of all kinds are going to start cutting their rates too, and borrowing is going to become less expensive for consumers and for businesses. How much less expensive will depend on what kind of business you're running and what kind of borrowing you're doing. Marketplace's Kristen Schwab walks us through it.
Most companies didn't wake up to a brand new world today. They woke up to one that kind of felt like yesterday, or last week, or last month. Carlin Mitchell, a former economist at the Kansas City Fed, says that's because lenders had been expecting a cut.
And so that was already priced into loans.
Bonds had adjusted, banks had adjusted, and it's not like companies that have already borrowed had been waiting in the same way homeowners might wait to refinance their mortgages. Mitchell says many businesses have floating loans that adjust on a regular basis, monthly, quarterly, yearly.
Commercial banks, less and less, lend for,
when possible.
I mean, 7 years would be an incredibly long loan. I don't think those even happen anymore.
Smaller businesses aren't getting immediate gratification either. They may rely on credit cards, and those rates take a while to change. But the Fed's cut did represent a pivot in business mentality. Fred Hoffman is a finance professor at Rutgers.
Investing doesn't take overnight, right? There's planning stages, there's R&D, there's all that stuff that takes time. I think the Fed is giving you the green light to get to work.
The companies best positioned to get to work are big corporations that can take on risk. Because bigger picture, borrowing money is not just about the cost of borrowing. It's also about business conditions.
We'll have another president, we'll have another Congress.
Which could come with changes to corporate taxes and tariffs. It's why Joe Brusuelis, chief economist at RSM, says businesses that are more risk-averse will act slowly.
Small firms will always lag by 12 to 24 months. Mid-market firms, usually about 6 to 12 months.
It could be a bit before companies borrow and invest and hire.
The hiring numbers we're going to see for the remainder of the year will not be impacted by what the Fed did yesterday.
Brusuelis says we'll have to wait until next year to see the Fed's cuts play out in the job market. I'm Kristen Schwab for Marketplace.
Wall Street on this Fed Plus One. You remember yesterday traders were kind of happy and then kind of not happy about the rate cut? Well, having slept on it, they were very happy about it today. We'll have the details when we do the numbers. I took a little road trip a couple of months ago. All right, so here we are at 7-something in Utqiagvik. We're out for the day. Also out for the day without cell phone coverage, which is going to be interesting because none of us know our way around here. Utqiagvik, Alaska, used to be called Barrow. My producer Hilly Hirschman and I are driving on the one road that goes along the coast. The Arctic Ocean, frozen solid, is just to our left. The sky and the snow are basically the same color. It's a little bit disorienting, actually, because you can't see the horizon. Honestly, we're a little lost.
Also, the road is about to get left.
Yeah, the road is like getting less roady. I think you go straight.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I just was going straight, but
yeah, well, there's a truck or something up there, right? This is pathetic.
It's like literally a straight road down the coast.
We're headed to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's Barrow Observatory. Brian Thomas runs the place.
Morning. Good morning. Morning.
Hi.
Holy cow.
We're just going to turn right,
Keep
turn right
left.
there, and when you follow me, follow me like you're on the California Highway 101, not like on the Long Island Expressway, okay? All right, so...
I don't know what that means, and I'm from
give me a couple
California,
of
and I grew
car
up in New York.
lanes between us. So I'll lead you in.
I'm regretting not bringing my sunglasses, which sounds ridiculous, but if the sun comes out, it's going to be brutal. Oh yeah, we're off-roading now.
Don't say that on tape. Legally not allowed.
We were, I need to tell you, actually on the road.
Oh, man. This is something.
Yeah, so we're out here on the edge on purpose.
You really do feel like you're on the edge up here. Utqiagvik is the northernmost town in the United States, 320 miles north of the Arctic Circle. It's 7 degrees out, 15 knots of wind, very, very cold.
Is it just you here, or
No, there are two of us here.
Okay, all right.
I have myself, the station lead, and our technician. We live in town, we stay in town, and we have people who come up to do instrument servicing, maintenance, installs, but it's just two of us here full time.
The observatory is a one-story gray building tucked away from town, surrounded by snowy tundra. It feels, and it is, very remote. They've got a new building, though, with some modern touches, heated door frames to keep ice from forming, and for the first time in 40 years, a flush toilet.
The truck comes and brings fresh water, and a different truck comes and pumps out the gray water.
Like I said, remote. All right, lead on.
All right,
again.
so we can go on the roof, which is what I would
let's go on the
suggest.
roof.
Okay, yeah.
It's totally going to be windier up there, which would be amazing. Upstairs, yes?
Yeah.
All right. Oh, yeah, no, this was a dumb idea. This was a terrible idea.
So up here on our roof deck, we have our solar instruments.
Okay, wait. Roof deck does not connote what you think it connotes.
It's a big platform grating, and the reason it's a grating is so the snow falls through.
This observatory has been sampling the atmosphere since the 1970s and measuring the concentration of carbon dioxide for 50 years. Spoiler alert, it's been going up. A lot. In atmospheric and economic terms, it's a leading indicator of how much more heat the atmosphere can hold.
Step outside your scientist hat for a minute, your observer hat, and get subjective for me. What does your work mean?
It's really important that we know what's happening. If we weren't here to look, we wouldn't know. Observing is one of those things that you do whether you know there's something interesting to watch or not, because what we're looking for is change. And if we don't know what's happening now, we won't understand what's happening when we see it change later.